And up next are the Thousand Suns. I've just finished recording my video about the regular Chaos Space Marines. That video was very long, so this video might actually be up before that one, depending on how long it takes to render and upload. In any case, we will take a look at the Thousand Suns, which is hopefully gonna be a lot shorter because, well, there's not as much to talk about, but there is still some to talk about. So let's just get into it. Thousand Suns, their army rule is Cabal of Sorcerers. And there's a lot of text, but basically you pick some units, they give you some points, and depending on how many points you have, you can cast a number of rituals. Now you can only cast one ritual per phase, but you can cast the ritual as many times as you want during your turn, and as many times you want during the entire game. Do keep in mind that if you start the game with, say, 20 Cabal points, and then you lose some units, then you'll have less Cabal points, because you only get those Cabal points while those units are on the battlefield. So you will have less and less points as the games go on. Alright, the rituals you have to choose from are Weaver of Fates. This allows you to reroll a saving throw. Now you have to be within 18 inches of the Tzaangor casting this ritual. However, Rubric Marines and Scarab Terminators have a Tzaangor in their unit. The leader, the sergeant, whatever, is the Tzaangor. So as long as that model is alive inside of the unit, then you can use this on his own unit or any of the other units within your reach. It's only 2 Cabal points, it's only 1 reroll, but it's a free reroll. It's specifically for the saving throw, but it's okay, it's fine. Sometimes you'll probably find yourself having, 4 or 5 left over, and then using it once or twice to reroll saving throw is completely fine. Then there is Temporal Search, and it just basically allows you to make another normal move, but then you're not eligible to declare a charge. You can still shoot, so this is just a way to maneuver around the battlefield and get to where you want to be or get line of sight where you want it a bit easier. Echoes from the Warp allows you to use a stratagem for 0 command points, and you can use it even if you've already used it this phase. So you can overwatch twice in the same phase, you can heroically intervene twice, or you can use one of their own stratagems twice in the same phase, and one of them will be for free. Then there's Doombolt, and this one is probably among the more spicy ones. It is 7 Cabal points, so it is fairly expensive. But you pick an enemy unit within 18 of the Tzaangor casting it, and then you roll a d6. On a 1, they take d3 mortal wounds. On a 2 to 5, it's d3 plus 3 mortal wounds. And on a 6, it's d3 plus 6 mortal wounds. So no matter what you roll, you will get some damage out of this. And you can potentially get 9 mortal wounds if you're really lucky. On average though, it'll be 4 or 5 mortal wounds, which is, that's pretty solid. You can just pick a unit within 18 and cast this out. Now you are limited to only using this once per battle round because you have to use it at the start of your shooting phase. And you can only use rituals once per phase. So even if you have, say, 21 Cabal points, you wouldn't be able to use it in your movement phase, your shooting phase, and your fight phase. This one is limited to the shooting phase, very much like Temporal Search is also limited to the shooting phase. And then the last Cabal ritual you have is the Twist of Fate one. This is the most expensive at 9 Cabal points. But it's also a very powerful effect, not allowing the enemy model that you target within 18 to take any armor saving throws. Now, this does mean that they can still do invulnerable saves if they have one, but if they don't have one, like let's just say Gravis Marines without an invulnerable save, then everything you put into them, everything that wounds them will just go straight to damage. And you can use this in your shooting phase, your fight phase, and you can even use it in your opponent's phase, because it's the start of any phase. So you could save 9 Cabal points and then set up, let's just say, a block of Rubric Terminators, and it might be like an obvious thing for your opponent to be like, oh yeah, I want to charge those and kill them. And then they charge them, they come in, and then when you punch them back, you all of a sudden deal so much damage because they don't have an invuln save, and they're not allowed to take an armor save. So those are the Cabal rituals available to the Thousand Suns. It's not a lot, but it is meant to represent their psychic powers and abilities. Obviously, turning off armor saves is incredibly powerful. Doombolt is pretty decent. Temporal Search is also okay. Echoes from the Warp, I need to look at the stratagems before I can say anything about that one. And Weavers of Fate is probably one you're not really going to be using unless you have, 2 Cabal points left over or something like that. Alright, then we have the Detachment rule, which is choose one of these 3 things, and then your psychic weapons have that ability. So you can either get lethal hits, sustained hits, or devastating wounds. Moving into the stratagems, we have Psychic Dominion. This is the one we have already seen. It's a very spicy one because it is an anti-psychic stratagem. So it's in any phase after your unit has been targeted, and then you select one of your Thousand Suns units, and until the end of that phase, all attacks made against your unit with psychic weapons have the hazardous ability, and all models in your unit have the Feel No Pain 4+ ability against psychic attacks. Now it's a bit niche because as far as we know, the only other army that has like mass psychic weapons are Grey Knights. But against Grey Knights, this is amazing. Not only do you just have all the damage going into you because you have a Feel No Pain 4+, but you also make it so every single time someone swings a weapon in melee or shoots with their magic smite, they have to roll a hazardous test. And if they roll a 1, the model's just destroyed if it's not a character. And if it's a character, they take 3 mortal wounds, which is pretty big. It's a very niche stratagem, but it'll come up once in a while. Then there is Devastating Sorcery. It's in your shooting phase, and you choose 1,000 Suns Tzaangor unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in your unit makes a psychic attack, you can reroll the hit roll and you can reroll the wound roll. At first, I thought this was going to be really strong, and then I realized that 1,000 Suns only has 1 Tzaangor per unit. And like full hit and wound rerolls is good, but on 1 model with like shooting, as we'll see later, it's not amazing. It's not amazing. It's fine. It's okay. What is pretty amazing is Destined by Fate. You use this in any phase when you fail a saving throw, and then the damage of that attack just becomes 0. Where I see this being the most useful is for the Land Raider. Yes, I think 1,000 Suns will be taking Land Raiders. I'll talk more about that a little bit later. But the Land Raider gets hit by a last cannon? No. Yeah, okay, you hit me, but 0 damage. And then if you want to be really annoying, then you also pop the echoes from the Warp ability. Oh no, wait, you cannot do that because that requires a Tzaangor unit to use it. So you couldn't use that on a Land Raider. But still, it's a good stratagem. Just at any point, just spend it and something becomes 0 damage. Then we have Ensorcelled Infusion, Ensorcell, I don't know how to pronounce that. In your shooting phase, when one of your 1,000 Sun Tzaangor units, I just realized as I was reading that, this does not work on the Land Raider because it's 1,000 Sun Tzaangor model only. Okay, well that kind of sucks. Still a good stratagem, just not as good as I thought it was going to be. Anyways, the other one, Ensorcelled Infusion. Your shooting phase. 1,000 Sun Tzaangor unit from your army that has not been selected to shoot this phase. Until the end of the phase, all Inferno Bolt Pistols, Inferno Bolt Guns, Inferno Combi Bolters, and Inferno Combi Weapons equipped by models in this unit have the Psychic ability and a Strength characteristic of 5. So it kind of feels like you want to take the Ensorcelled Infusion and then also use Devastating Sorcery, because that turns all of your regular guns into psychic weapons, and then you can reroll all hits and all wounds, which is pretty good. And if you don't want to pay for one of them, let's just say you just have 1 CP or you have another plan with the other CP, you could then use the echoes from the Warp ability and get one of these stratagems for free. And yeah, I mean, 1,000 Suns does not have super scary shooting, but they have decent shooting. And when you add in full hit rerolls and full wound rerolls, it becomes a little bit scarier. Next up, we have Sorcerer's Might. In your shooting phase, 1,000 Sun Tzaangor unit from your army that is not selected to shoot yet. Until the end of the phase, add 9 inches to the range of psychic weapons equipped by your unit. Once again, you can combo it with the Ensorcelled Infusion to give your weapons more range, because this makes all of your basically normal guns into psychic weapons, and this one adds 9-inch range to all psychic weapons. Then there is Warp Sight, which is also in your shooting phase. Can you guess what GW wants 1,000 Suns to be? If you guessed a shooting army, you might be onto something. So you pick 1,000 Sun Tzaangor unit from your army and 1 enemy unit that is visible to that unit. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly 1,000 Sun Tzaangor model makes an attack with a psychic weapon that targets that enemy unit, the attack has the indirect fire and ignores cover ability. So basically, you get to shoot through walls, you still take the -1 penalty, but the enemy unit does not get the benefit of cover that it would normally get from indirect fire. It is 2 CP, so slightly expensive. Once again, remember that you have the Cabal ritual you can use to make this free. But those are the stratagems. I wouldn't say they are the most powerful. And I think what might happen with these stratagems is that unlike, say, Space Marine stratagems, where each stratagem is individually decent, or even good, a lot of these are kinda on their own, but you can combo them together to do some cool things. However, that's very expensive CP-wise. and you don't get a ton of command points in 10th edition. So how often you can do these things is like not super certain. We'll have to wait and see. In general, as I said, I wouldn't say that any of these stratagems are that great on their own, but you can do some fun things by comboing them together. And then it just all comes down to how often can you actually do that. Alright, let's take a look at the enhancements. First, there is the Lord of Forbidden Law. 1000 Suns Tzaangor model. The bearer can be selected to use a ritual, even if another Tzaangor from your army has already been selected to use that ritual this phase. So this circumvents the no armor save rule, where it's only in your shooting phase and once per phase. Well, now you can use it twice per phase. So if you did have, 18 Cabal points, you could do it to 2 units. Or you can even use the get a stratagem for 3 twice in the same phase. That could actually be pretty damn good. And you can also use the same stratagem multiple times. Yeah, that's not bad. The Umbralific Crystal is the same as it is in 9th edition, actually. You basically pick a unit, or rather the bearer's unit. You give this to a leader, the leader joins that unit, and then that unit can be picked up and put down somewhere else next turn. So they deep strike. They don't teleport anymore, which I think is what I actually did before now that I think about it. Well, it is actually a teleport, kinda, because you pick them up in the command phase and then you put them down in the reinforcement step of your next movement phase, which is happening in the same turn that your command phase is. So it's a teleport. Yeah, it's the exact same. So you give this to a character joins a unit, and they teleport. At wherever they want, whenever they want. There's no restrictions here. So yeah, that's probably pretty decent. Then we have the Athenian Scrolls, which is really underwhelming. You generate 1 additional Cabal point. That's just, I mean, why? Why 1? 1 is so little. We'll have to look at what each of the units give you in Cabal points, but 1 is just not enough, I think. It should have been like 2 or maybe 3 or maybe D3. But just getting 1 seems kind of lame. And then there is the Arcane Vortex. You add 1 to strength and damage characteristic of psychic weapons equipped by the bearer. Not the unit, but just the bearer. And this one is also kind of meh, unless there's a psychic melee unit that I'm forgetting about. Well, it's all psychic weapons, but I don't like... 1000 Suns doesn't have, like, damage characters. They have buff and ability characters. We'll have to wait and see. But both Athenian Scrolls and Arcane Vortex seem kinda bad. Lore of Forbidden Lore I think is really good. Umbralific Crystal is pretty good. Alright, let's look at some data sheets. The first one we have is Ahriman. We've already seen him. He has been previewed. His psychic shooting attack is kinda lame. Now we know that, like, librarians do just better than he do. It's 1 attack, it is precision, he's hitting on 2, strength 6, AP 1, damage D6. It's just like, I don't know, it's not very good, I think. It's fine. You can, of course, give it like lethal hits or devastating wounds, depending on what, which one of the 3 different things you pick in your command phase. Because it is a psychic attack, but I still think it's a little lame. And like, it's only 1 profile, it doesn't even have 2 profile like most psychic attacks have. So that just kind of feels like a fail on GW's part. In melee, he's fine. I mean, he's not really meant to go into melee, but he gets 5 attacks, hits on 2s, strength 7, AP 1, damage 3. It's okay. He can punch back against like normal marines or normal things. But anything other than that, he's not really gonna do anything. He is a leader and he can join Rubric Marines only. That was very surprising for me to see. And then when he's leading a unit, you get +1 to wound. And once per battle, he can use a ritual for free. However, he cannot break any of the rules applied to the Cabal of Sorcerers rules, so rituals, words. He cannot, like, do a thing, you've already done this phase, is what I'm saying. And you cannot give him any of the enhancements because he is an epic hero, so he cannot get the ability to do a thing that's already been done this phase. Do a ritual that's already been done this phase. Do a thing that's already been done this phase. I mean, I've been talking a lot today, so forgive me. Stats-wise, it's pretty much what you've come to expect. There's also a profile for him on disc, and the only thing that changes is that he goes to a 10-inch movement instead of a 5-inch movement. He can still join Rubric Marines if he takes a disc, but of course he's not going to be able to take advantage of his 10-inch movement if he's in a squad. So the only thing that holds you back from taking him on a disc every single time is probably points cost, because other than that, there's no difference. So yeah, that's Ahriman. Honestly, just a little bit disappointing. He is the faction leader. I mean, I know Magnus is there, but let's be real, Ahriman is the man in charge. So yeah, not a lot for Ahriman. He gives you 3 Cabal points, which is quite a decent amount. But that's him. That's all. That's it. Next up, we have a bunch of vehicles. These are like mostly the same compared to their Space Marine and Chaos Space Marine versions. The name of some of the things are a bit different. For example, it's a Soul Shatter Last Cannon. I don't think that's what they're called for the normal Chaos Land Raiders, but I don't know. In any case, I promised I would talk real quick about why I think Thousand Sons will bring Land Raiders. And it's not just Thousand Sons, it's actually also Custodes and Grey Knights. These are all factions that don't really have a lot of anti-tank shooting. But the Land Raider does come equipped with the Last Cannons, which is a very good anti-vehicle gun. And then they're also equipped with like decent anti-infantry weapons. They also allow you to charge after jumping out of the transport. And overall, just like a pretty decent unit. I think it's points pending. You still need to have a reason to bring it other than its guns, meaning that you need a transport, something to transport around. But I don't think you need to have something super important to transport around for this to be worth bringing. Land Raiders, I think, are gonna be a very common thing to see in 10th edition for those armies that don't have other anti-tank shooting options. Now, the Thousand Sons do have the Predator Annihilator as well as the Predator Destructor. I believe they can have the exact same weapons, so the only difference is in their rules. This one allows you to reroll damage rolls of 1 against monsters and vehicles, and the other one gives you +1 AP against infantry. The Rhino is the same as every other faction's Rhino. The Chaos Spawn is the same as the Chaos Space Marine Chaos Spawn, I'm fairly certain at least. The Vindicator is the same. The Defiler is the same. And then we make it onto the actual Thousand Sons unit, starting off with the Exalted Sorcerer. Profile-wise, the exact same as you would expect from 9th edition, just OC1, so not gonna be holding any objectives. His psychic weapon is, honestly, this is something that, like, why is this not on Ahriman? I don't get it. It's 18-inch range, blast, devastating wounds, D6 shots, hitting on 2s, strength 6, AP 2, damage D3. Am I completely crazy for thinking that is such a better profile than precision, 18-inch, 1 attack, hitting on 2s, 6, 1d6? Maybe I am just being crazy, but this just seems like a way better psychic attack than what Ahriman gets. And then he has the Inferno Bolt pistol, or a Plasma pistol, or a Warp Flame pistol. I believe you can just choose any of those, yep. And then he has a Corpesh, is that how you say it? Corpesh. Prosperin Corpesh. Or a Force Weapon. I think you just take the Force Weapon every time. Force Weapon, 1 more attack, hits 1 better strength, 1 less AP, but D3 damage. Or you take the Thousand Sons version of a power weapon. I don't know. I'd probably just take the Force Weapon just to have more psychic weapons, because the army is just driven on having psychic weapons, your ability to get devastating wounds or sustained hits or lethal hits. So yeah, I'll probably just take the Force Weapon. He gives you Cabal of Sorcerers too. Oh yeah, just real quick, just want to say that any of the vehicles do not give you Cabal Sorcerers, neither do the Chaos Spawn. So you're getting no Sorcerer, or no Cabal points for bringing any of those. But the Exalted Sorcerer gives you 2. And then his abilities are actually quite good in my opinion. He gives out a 4-up invulnerable save, and if he's leading a unit, you can roll 1d6. And if you roll a 1, you take d3 mortal wounds. Ah, that sucks. But on a 2 to 5, you can revive 1 bodyguard model, and on a 6, you can return up to 2 of them. Now granted, he can only join Rubric Marines, but giving Rubric Marines a 4-up invulnerable save and bringing back models every turn, that's pretty decent. And as far as we know, there's nothing stopping you from taking multiple Exalted Sorcerers and throwing into every single Rubric Marine squad, making them, you know, quite a bit tougher. So yeah, I think the Exalted Sorcerer is absolutely decent. Then we have the exact same profile, but on a disc instead. They have the same abilities, the same weapons, and can join the same units. So once again, I assume this is simply a matter of points. Perhaps this guy is, 80 points and this guy is 90 points. Who knows? Then we have the Thousand Sons Forge Fiend, and in my Chaos Space Marine video, I was actually a huge fan of the Forge Fiend because it's among one of the rare profiles where its shooting hasn't gotten worse from 9th to 10th edition. It has kept AP 3, damage 3, and it can take 3 of its ectoplasma cannons, which is what I think you should be taking on this guy. So you have 3 D3 shots with blast, hitting on 3s, strength 10, AP 3, damage 3. That is just an excellent shooting profile into elite infantry or like dreadnoughts. Because we've seen that the normal Space Marine dreadnoughts are toughness 9, and the Redemptor versions are toughness 10. So into the, what do you call them, the walking vehicles, the fighting vehicles, the walking vehicles, whatever you want to say, this is an amazing profile to have, and I think it's pretty damn solid. It has a 5-up invulnerable save because it is in Thousand Suns. I'm actually not sure if the Chaos Space Marine one has a 5-up invulnerable save. And its abilities is basically that you hit something in shooting, you can choose one of those targets, and that target is suppressed, meaning that they have -1 to hit. But yeah, the Forge Fiend, you can take the Hades autocannon, and you can also get the Jaws, but I would just take 3 ectoplasma cannons. I think that's honestly a decent unit to bring. Now, unfortunately, I don't think you can give this guy Psychic Weapon. Oh no, because that was only for Infernal Bolt Guns. But if you give this guy Psychic on his shooting weapons, that would be very cool. But yeah, I think the Forge Fiend is quite a decent choice. The Hellbrute is pretty much the same profile-wise to the Chaos Space Marine version. His ability, however, is slightly different. I believe he gave, reroll the Dark Pacts test in Chaos Space Marines? But in Thousand Suns, he gives you 1 Cabal point whenever you use a ritual within 9 inches of him. That's pretty sweet, you know? If you drop a few rituals, you get a few points back. Maybe you have enough to do a saving throw reroll, or maybe you just need 1 more point to cast that other ritual, whatever it may be. It's fine. In terms of his weaponry, I would probably give him either the missile launcher or the twin las cannon. And then, if you were to give him a melee weapon, probably the Hellbrute Fist. You could take the Hellbrute Hammer, but I feel like the Fist at strength 12 will do okay into vehicles, and then it's also pretty good into smaller vehicles and like elite infantry. So I think maybe the Fist is the best melee option. But I believe you can also just give him 2 shooting weapons. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, Hellbrute looks okay. The Thousand Suns Helldrake is where I think they just kind of get a downgrade compared to the Chaos Space Marine version. The profiles are the exact same, however the ability is different. The ability for Chaos Space Marines is that you get +1 to hit against flyers, which is very good when you look at the melee profile where it has anti-fly 2+. So you're hitting on 2s against a flying unit, and you're wounding them on 2s and applying mortal wounds. But in Thousand Suns, instead, when you make a move over something, then you can choose that unit doesn't have the benefit of cover, which is fine. I like the other one better because it gave it a much clearer rule, or rather a much clearer role, that it was supposed to fight, you know, jet bikes, speeders, other flyers, that sort of thing. So yeah, I think this is just a downgrade from the Chaos Space Marine version, which is unfortunate. Then there is the Infernal Master. His Psychic is a Flamer, 18-inch Flamer, 2d3 attacks at strength 6 AP2 damage 1, or 2d6 attacks at 6 AP2 damage 1. But if you do that, you also get Hazardous, which means that you roll 1 dice, and on a 1, you take 3 mortal wounds. And you only have 4 wounds on this guy, so you might want to be careful about doing that. But yeah, his Psychic attack is okay. Remember, they can get devastating wounds, lethal hits, or sustained hits, depending on what they choose. However, you probably want to take either lethal hits or devastating wounds on this guy, because when he's leading a unit, he gives all the weapons sustained hits 1, including himself, because he becomes part of that unit. So I mean, a Flamer with sustained hits 1, and then, say, devastating wounds. Oh wait, sustained hits 1 doesn't matter against with a flaming weapon because they auto hit. Okay, so, well, that power was just me being dumb. But you know, it's a Flamer with potential for some mortal wounds. That's fine. And then he gives the rest of the unit, you know, exploding 6s. The other part is that once per turn you can change the result of 1 hit, 1 wound, 1 damage, or 1 saving throw for this model to an unmodified 6. This was really good until I realized it's just for this model, meaning this guy. And yeah, I mean, you can use it in shooting, I guess? But that's about it. Until his bodyguard unit is done, you cannot really do saving throws for him. Well, with precision you can, I suppose. But like, nothing exciting happens on a 6 to wound. I mean, yeah, okay, you can get 1 mortal wound guaranteed if you want to do that in shooting for your psychic weapons. Yeah, okay. But yeah, not super exciting. He gives out 2 Cabal points for the rituals. He is okay. He can join either Rubric Marines or Rubric Marines. Then there is Magnus the Red, the Primarch of the Thousand Suns, and he has a lot of stuff. Now, Magnus had some issues in 9th edition. Well, most big things had some issues in 9th edition, unless they had like 4 different stacks of defensive buffs on them. But he's looking to be tougher than ever. 14-inch move, toughness 11, 2-up save, 16 wounds, and a 4-up invulnerable save. He has 2 shooting weapons. He has the Gaze of Magnus, which is devastating wounds. 24 inches, 3d3 attacks, hitting on 2, strength 9, AP 2, damage 3. That is quite powerful shooting from Magnus, with the potential of some of it being mortal wounds. And then there is a Siege Firestorm, which is blast, 24 inches, d6 plus 3, 2, 5, 1, 2. Those are both some decent anti-elite infantry and smaller vehicle shooting, but not something that's going to do any damage unless you get those 6s with the Gaze of Magnus against the larger vehicles. What will do pretty well against the larger vehicles is the Blade of Magnus, the strike profile to be more specific. Devastating wounds and psychic, 7 attacks, hitting on 2s, strength 16, AP 3, damage 3. Yeah, this thing will do very well into basically anything. And then there's also the sweep profile. You get double the amount of attacks, but half the strength, only 1 AP and 1 damage. So yeah, if you want to clean up a bunch of elves that got into melee with you, or Sisters of Battle or whatever, this profile is pretty good. It's the usual, strike for the big things, sweep for the small things. Then moving into his rules, he has Deep Strike. I do believe he already had that in 9th edition, but I'm not entirely sure. He gives you 4 points to Cabal Rituals. And then his abilities are at the start of the battle round, select one of the abilities in the Crimson King section. And the ones you can choose from here is either -1 damage against Magnus himself. And then there is also Treason of Siege, which I think is maybe one of the best abilities. You pick an enemy unit within 24 inches in the shooting phase, and that enemy unit has the hazardous ability on their guns. And this is amazing against anything from a 5-man infantry squad to a land raider, because it's every weapon that gets the hazardous keyword. So if you use this on a land raider that shoots 4 or 5 different weapons, it has to take 5 hazardous tests. So that is quite powerful. It's not going to stop someone from shooting, but it is going to make them think twice about doing it. And then the last ability is Time Flux. While a friendly Thousand Suns unit is within 6 inches of the Tzaangor, add 2 inches to the move characteristic of models in that unit. Helps you get around the board quite decent. Out of these 3, I do believe Treason of Siege is the most powerful. You might take first turn and take Time Flux to help everything move up. And then when Magnus the Red is a bit more exposed, you might take the -1 damage. But without being completely sure about it, if you're within 24 inches of something, let's say a Lion Raider, and it can see you and you can see it, then you probably want to put the hazardous ability on it rather than take the -1 damage. The downside of this is that you have to do it at the start of the battle round. So if you go first, you have to, know if you can be within 24 inches of something to put it on, and you cannot change it like every command phase. So it's okay. It's okay abilities. I don't think they are as strong as, say, Guilliman or even Abaddon's abilities, but they're okay. And then whenever a Thousand Suns Tzaangor unit is within 6 inches of Magnus, you get +1 to hit and +1 to wound. That's just a force multiplier, and it's always very good. We'll have to wait and see how many points Magnus are. That is also one of the things holding him back in 9th edition. Him not being able to survive, and his points. So time will tell. There's the Thousand Suns Mauler Fiend. I think profile-wise, it's the exact same as the Chaos Space Marine one. The Mauler Fiend Fists are excellent anti-tank melee weapons. The Magma Cutter, I don't think you should bother with. Yes, it's 2 Magma Pistols, or Melter Pistols, but 6-inch range, you have to be within 3 before it gets spicy. It's fine. I think I would just rather take the Lasher Tendrils extra attacks. That's my personal opinion. And his abilities in Thousand Suns is that you can use the Heroic Intervention strat on him for free. That is very good, not bad at all. And here is what I think the winner of the biggest glow up in the Thousand Suns index, the Mutalith Vortex Beast. Starting off, he is 10-inch movement, toughness 10, 4-up save, 13 wounds, and a 5-up invulnerable save. That is fairly tough. It's about the same as a Dreadnought, but it doesn't have a 2-up save. Instead, it has a 5-up invulnerable save. That probably averages out to being about the same, but somewhere around a Dreadnought or like a Space Marine Redemptor Dreadnought. But it also has the 5-up Feel No Pain ability, so it's a tanky boy. Its ranged weapon is 1 weapon, but you have 3 different profiles to choose from. The big one is D6 plus 3. Oh no, wait, that's not the big one. For some reason, they've done it in a weird ordering way. So what I would call the anti-infantry version, or anti-elite infantry version, is D6 plus 3, hitting on 3s, strength 9, AP 2, damage 2. Very good at just picking up marines here and there. Then you have the beam, which is just 1 shot, hitting on 3s, strength 18, AP 4, and D6 plus 6 damage. This thing can straight up nuke a Redemptor Dreadnought, which I think has 12 wounds. I might be wrong about that one. But that is just wild. It's also devastating wounds, so every once in a while you're gonna get that 6, and then d6 plus 6 mortal wounds that's gonna hurt. That's gonna hurt a lot. And then the final profile is a flamer profile. It ignores cover, is 2d6, strength 6, AP 1, damage 1. So that is the anti-infantry version, whereas the other one was the anti-elite infantry version, I suppose. In melee, it's still not amazing. It has a lot of attacks with the maw, if you just want to kill a lot of small things. And then it has like it's a quite awkward other profile with its claws. It's 5 attacks at weapon skill 3, strength 9, AP 2, damage 4. And I'm just like, what? When do you need strength 9 and damage 4? Like that usually that doesn't like go together. But yeah, it's okay in melee. It's fine. The profile is a bit weird to me. But we're not done yet because there's also the abilities. First and foremost, when you end your movement phase, roll 1d6 for each enemy unit within 6 inches of this model. On a 2-3, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. On a 4-5, it suffers d3. And on a 6, it suffers d6 mortal wounds. And each enemy unit within range of this ability must also take a battle shock test. So 6 inches doesn't sound like a lot, but the Mutalith Vortex Beast is a pretty big model. So it takes up some space on the board. So 6 inches goes quite far. And remember, it's not one unit within 6 inches. It's every enemy unit within 6 inches. And even if you roll a 1 on the mortal wound, they still have to take a battle shock test. That's a pretty excellent ability, but we're not done yet, because the biggest part of the Mutalith Vortex Beast is that it can double the range of all rituals when the Tzaangor casting the ritual is within 6 inches of it. So Doombolt goes from 18 to 36 inch range, just pew, potentially snipe someone with 5 mortal wounds on average. The no armor saving throws also becomes 36 inch range. And yeah, it's just a very good conduit. So the Vortex Beast has pretty damn good shooting, pretty okay melee, good abilities, is fairly tough, and yeah, I just think the guy is a nominee for biggest glow up in 10th edition from 9th edition. Alright, now we have the meat and sauce of the Thousand Suns, the Rubric Marines, followed by the Scarab Occult Terminators. These guys are the same stat line, I believe, as they were in 9th edition. I'm a bit unsure if they were also 5-inch movement, but they did, of course, lose the +1 armor save against damage 1. So they're slightly less tough than before, but other than that, mostly the same. Their weapons are all things we've seen before, I believe. They give you 1 Cabal ritual point. Do note that it's the sorcerer that gives you this point. That's the guy with the staff. So if that guy dies, then you don't get that point anymore. And it is, when you do a ranged attack, you can reroll wound rolls of 1. And if the target of the ranged attack is in range of an objective, you can reroll the entire wound roll instead. And then you can take an icon of flame, and when you do that, your ranged attacks get +1 AP on critical wounds. I don't have a ton to say about Rubric Marines. They are very much the same as they were before. You're gonna see them running around with some Warp Flamers, some Infernal Bolt Guns, some Soul Reaper cannons, and that's really about it. Very much the same thing to say for the Scarab Occult Terminators. They are, of course, toughness 5 with a 4-up invulnerable save now, like every other Terminator. They have some better ranged weapons, but they're not really that different from 9th edition, meaning that they've been slightly nerfed because of strength going, well, not going down, but strength not being as good, and AP going down. But they're still pretty good. Hellfire Rack Missile, 2 attacks hitting on 3s, strength 10, AP 2, damage 3. That hits pretty hard. And the Inferno Combi Bolter just being, you know, a better bolt rifle. And then their ability is that they have Baby Transhuman. Well, it's actually better than Baby Transhuman, because if they're being wounded on 2s, it goes to a 3. But if they're being wounded on 3s, it goes to a 4. So they are, you know, slightly tougher to kill than they were before, probably. Yeah, not bad, not bad. Oh, and they give you 1 Cabal ritual point. Per sorcerer, not per unit or per model, per sorcerer. Then we have the Thousand Suns Sorcerer. This guy has the Fires of the Abyss psychic ranged weapon. It's a pistol, sustain hits 3, 12-inch range, 2d6 shots, hitting on 2, strength 5, AP 1, damage 1. Nothing amazing, it's fine. The rest of the weapons you know already. His abilities are that he gives the unit he's leading lethal hits. And he doesn't give them lone operative, but he gives them kinda lone operative. Instead of being 12 inches, it's 18 inches. However, once again, he can only join Rubric Marines. The one unit that can join Scarab Occult Terminators is the Thousand Sun Sorcerer in Terminator armor. This guy has the Coruscating Flames psychic weapon, which is anti-monster 4+, anti-vehicle 4+, devastating wounds, and psychic of course. Just 3 attacks, hitting on 3s, only strength 4, but if you use it against monsters or vehicles, it's always wounding on 4s. AP 3, damage 2, so on average you're looking at 2 mortal wounds against a monster or a vehicle. Which is fine, you know, that's not bad. He gives you 2 Cabal ritual points, and his abilities are, while this model is leading a unit, it gives them lethal hits. And marked by fate, in your shooting phase, you can select one enemy unit within 18 inches of and visible to this model. Until the end of the turn, each time a friendly Thousand Suns model makes a ranged attack, makes an attack that targets that unit, reroll a hit roll of 1. So he gives army-wide reroll 1s to hit against a specific target. And that honestly kinda concludes Thousand Suns. You have the Cultist, which is funny that if they kill something on a 2+, you get a CP, and when they die on a 2+, you get a CP. Then we have the Demon Prince. I should have said, when I meant I said we conclude Thousand Suns, I meant we conclude like Thousand Suns units, and now we just have the other units that Space Marines or Chaos Space Marines can always also take. The Demon Prince can have an Infernal Cannon range weapon. It's some okay shooting, nothing amazing. It's actually just, it's a heavy bolter with more attacks. His Hellforge weapon is the exact same as the Chaos Space Marine Thousand Suns Demon Prince. However, the Thousand Suns Demon Prince, actually not sure. So you can give the Demon Prince in Chaos Space Marines one of the marks of chaos, but I don't remember what the mark of siege does. I'm wondering if that's baked into his datasheet, but I don't remember it, so I don't know. For his ability, he has the Weave of Fate. Once per battle at the start of any phase, you can select one friendly Rubric Marines or Scarab Occult Terminator unit within 6 inches of this model. Until the end of the phase, weapons equipped by models in that unit have the Precision ability, so you can target characters and try and snipe them with your shooting. And that's honestly pretty powerful. I mean, you can probably imagine 4 Hellfire missile rack shots coming to your character. That's pretty scary. He also gives out an aura of stealth within 6 inches of himself, and stealth is -1 to be hit in shooting. He is not a leader and cannot join any units, but he does give you 2 Cabal points. Then we have the same unit, but with wings, and this actually changes quite a bit about how he works. He gets more movement, but he gets less toughness, I believe. Yeah, he gets +2 move, but -1 toughness. Oh no, wait, he gets +4 move. Okay, that's a lot. His weapons stay the same, but his abilities change. So he has the Sorceress Fire ability. Each time this model ends a normal move, you can select one enemy unit it moved over this phase and roll 9d6. For each 6, that unit suffers 1 mortal wound. Now I believe this is either a nerf compared to the Chaos Space Marine version or a slight change. I think maybe the Chaos Space Marine version has, when you make a charge, you roll dice equal to the current wound characteristic. And on a 4+, you deal a mortal wound. Whereas this one is, when you fly over something, you always roll 9 dice. I'm fairly certain it's better to get them on a 4+, but then rolling potentially less dice, than it is to roll 9 dice always, but it has to be 6s to deal mortal wounds. So that's maybe just a downgrade. And then the other part is Aether Stride. At the end of your opponent's turn, if this model is not in engagement range, you can pick him up and put him down in Deep Strike during your next reinforcement step. That's pretty solid. Say I charge the Demon Prince with something and I don't manage to kill him, but he manages to kill my unit. At the end of my turn, my opponent can pick up his Demon Prince and then just reposition him as he sees fit. Granted, of course, he cannot move him afterwards. Alright, okay, so there was like 2 more Thousand Sun units that I forgot about, which are the Tzaangors. And unfortunately, it looks like Tzaangors will continue to be, well, Tzaangors. Tzaangor Enlightened, they have some weapons here. The Fatecaster Greatbow is okay. So I mean, you could take a bunch of Fatecaster Greatbows, and then you have some decent shooting. Nothing amazing, you're hitting on 4s, but it's okay. And then their ability is that when something ends advance, normal move, or fall back move within 9 inches of this unit, it can move up to d6. Then there's the Tzaangor Shaman. He gives you +1 to your Cabal points. His ability is Mutating Orbs. It's Blast, Devastating Wounds, 18-inch range, d6 attacks, hitting on 3s, strength 9, AP 0, damage 1. Also a very weird profile. It can deal like 1 average mortal wound, I guess. It's not great. And his Shaman Stave, I believe, is just a Force Stave or a Force Weapon, but it's called something else for some reason. No, I'm not sure. He is a leader. I'm gonna let you guess what he can join. Gives you, yeah, the 1 Cabal point. And then his abilities are, the units he's leading has a 5-up Feel No Pain ability, and he gives whatever he's leading +1 to hit. And he can lead Tzaangor Enlightened and Tzaangors. You know, it's probably not completely horrible to have this guy leading a unit of Tzaangor Enlightened with a bunch of Fatecaster Great Bows. So they're hitting on 3s, they got lethal hits, they got precision, it's a heavy bolter, they have a 5-up feel no pain. It's not terrible. They have 2 wounds. It's not horrible. And then finally we have the just regular Tzaangors. Yeah, they exist. Their purpose is going to be giving you more Cabal points because of their Relic Hunter's ability. At the end of your command phase, roll 1d6 for each objective marker you control that has 1 or more units from your army with this ability within range of it. For each 4+, you gain 1 Cabal point. So I imagine you take 2, maybe 3 units of Tzaangors. You throw them on your home objectives, and that basically just guarantees you get at least +1 Cabal point every single turn. And with that, we are done with the Thousand Suns Index. I am not sure how great Thousand Suns are gonna be. They have some cool abilities, but they also have a lot of mediocre datasheets. They definitely struggle to deal damage towards any tough things. Their psychic attacks is like, some are good, some are bad. I think for sure the best leaders you can get are the Thousand Sun Sorcerer, as well as the very first one, I already forgot his name. The Exalted Sorcerer, those two seem to have the best abilities. Unfortunately, they can only join Rubric Marines. The Terminator Sorcerer is also decent. But yeah, Thousand Suns are just so different because the Psychic phase is gone. I have a Grey Knights army, and I'm also very confused and, you know, not really sure about what's going to happen with them. Because I kind of bought them because they were a Psychic army, and now they're just not. I mean, they have the Psychic keyword, which really doesn't mean anything. So yeah, I'm curious to see what is going to happen with both Thousand Suns and Grey Knights. But overall, it depends a lot on points, obviously. But if you've been keeping track, you only get Cabal points from your characters, Rubric Marines, or Occult Scarab Terminators. And Tzaangors, I guess. The normal Tzaangors can give you some points. And yeah, it looks like you are maybe going MSU and taking as many characters as possible and putting them into units. Or sorry, you're taking minimum sized units because you want to take as many characters as possible to get as many Cabal points as possible. But then you're also reducing the effect of some of the stratagems. So it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be interesting. But the Vortex Beast is amazing. I think the Vortex Beast is amazing. I think the Forge Fiend is quite good. So those are 2 units that Thousand Suns players probably have not used for at least like 2 or 3 years, which now I think have a legitimate reason to be brought into the army. Okay, that is all I had to say about the Thousand Suns. I ended up speaking an hour about them. Well, an hour before I start cutting silent parts out and whatnot. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. I don't think I'm going to cover any more Chaos factions. Tomorrow we're going to have the Imperium factions, and I'm going to be covering both the Custodes and the Grey Knights, because those are the 2 armies I currently own. So look forward to that. And until I see you again, I hope you have a wonderful time.